This is Continuum Drag, a weekly podcast revisiting television sci-fi, fantasy, and everything in between. This week, Otherworld, episodes 1 and 2.
Perhaps in this place called Emar, someone could tell us the way back. Home. The word took on a new meaning. For in this other world, we were fugitives. There was danger here, a malice which pursued us. Whatever challenge or joy lay ahead, we would meet with a sense of adventure because the family was together. That was our triumph and our hope and our true home.
Welcome to Continuum Drag, the podcast beyond the beyond at the edge of within. I'm Luke, here with my co-host Jordan. What's real, Jordan?
If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. 4 months in the shadow of the Sphinx really changes a man's priorities. I've got more that's real. Ask me again.
What other quotes did you take from the show?
Here, I got another one. Ask me what's real.
What's real?
Go get your unit checked. I got another one.
What's real, Jordan?
Where are you from? The mental province?
I like that my question of what's real has just become you just telling me your favorite lines from the show.
Why don't you stick it in your access terminal?
How our show has evolved.
It's just grown in so many ways.
Yes, but this week we are starting a new series, Otherworld. It ran on CBS January 26th to March 16th, 1985.
Yeah, what were you doing in 1985?
I guess I would have been being 3 years old, maybe?
Pooping your pants.
Do you still poop your pants at 3?
I don't know. I don't remember. I think you're supposed to be past that.
Yeah, I'm not sure when toilet training happens. I mean, you pooped your pants well into 7 and 8, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I did. I was just telling some of this recently. I don't know if I've mentioned on the podcast. I did only pee myself one time, and it was during Batman Returns, and I was 10 years old.
You were just having such a great time.
Well, it actually was what it was. I was watching Batman Returns in the theater with my brother, and my grandma had taken us. No, my grandpa had taken us, excuse me. And we were watching it, and I didn't want to miss a moment, and I had to pee so bad, and it just happened.
I mean, you know what? That's a pretty exciting movie for a 10-year-old. I think with the penguin, it's very visually stunning.
Yeah, I just couldn't miss a moment. It was like I had a choice, you know? Do I miss Michelle Pfeiffer's performance, or do I pee myself?
Well, there's only one choice in that scenario. Mm-hmm. You made the right one.
Well, it was right at the moment, and then 30 seconds later, it was like, ooh, I've made a big mistake.
Grandpa's smacking me around. All right. Wait, I actually have one last question about this. Mm-hmm. So did you have to miss the end of Batman Returns when they dragged you to the theater?
No, I just peed myself, and I just watched the rest of the movie. And then afterwards, I was just like uncomfortable and wet the whole time.
Oh, you didn't say anything.
No, I didn't say anything.
It out.
No. I was just like, this will just be our little secret, you and me.
That would be so confusing. The movie ends, Grandpa's packing out, he's just like, wait a minute, why are you all wet?
Yeah, just couldn't miss it.
All right, Jordan. Well, before we get into Otherworld, let's get into what was going on in the world. Well, there was an Otherworld.
Nice.
So, as I said, this is 1985, and January 28th, We Are the World is recorded.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's a big one.
I mean, real star-studded event, but the name I was most surprised to read in the chorus was Dan Aykroyd.
Dan Aykroyd was there?
Dan Aykroyd was there for some reason.
They were like, we got Stevie Wonder, Cyndi Lauper, Bob Dylan, and Dan Aykroyd?
He brought the Crystal Skull vodka.
He just kept trying to ship it around. He's like, guys, it's going to be huge.
Have you heard about the ancient aliens?
Did you ever see once he did an interview on CNN and he mentioned that aliens would never speak to us anymore because of 9/11?
No, that's wonderful. That was the breaking point for aliens.
They're like, forget it. You know what, guys? You can't even control yourselves. Forget it. We're not coming down.
February 19th, the first artificial heart patient who was able to leave the hospital left the hospital.
Hold on. So is it inferred from that there are currently heart transplant patients who are still in the hospital?
I think the implication is that there were a few before him, but none of them got healthy enough to live.
I see. I kind of like my theory, which is they're still there. They're like, guys, come on, like it's working.
They just live there. They're like some sort of weird hospital slaves.
Yeah, that'd be a show, huh?
I mean, that's not dissimilar to probably some shows we've watched where like, oh, we invented technology, but once we put it inside of you, we own you.
Yeah.
March 11th, Mikhail Gorbachev becomes Secretary General and de facto leader of the Soviet Russia.
Yeah, and the beginning of every joke about his little birthmark on his forehead.
That was your favorite time in comedy, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought when I watched A Naked Gun and he tried rubbing it off, Leslie Nielsen tried rubbing it off Gorbachev's head, I thought that was the high point in comedy.
You were rolling the aisles, peeing your pants.
Yeah, I peed my pants, then rolled in the aisle and was like, oh, I've made a great...
And then you laughed so hard you peed again. All right. And here's something for our UK and Australia listeners.
There's got to be a lot of those, right?
I think there are maybe a couple. During the time the show was on the air, 2 long-running soap operas started, EastEnders and Neighbours. That's UK and Australia.
Yeah, okay, I know both of those.
Those are still going 35 years later.
It's crazy, huh? For whatever reason, soap operas really have legs.
Really outlasted out of Otherworld.
Yeah, you poor Otherworld. I'm going to say this. I'm going to go right off in the beginning. I kind of like this show.
I mean, let's get into it, shall we?
Yeah.
Here is the IMDb summary for episode 1, Rules of Attraction. A family of 5 on vacation in Egypt are led into a pyramid during a planetary alignment that causes them to be transported to a world with different governing zones. They must escape to a zone that is not harmful to them.
That is true. That seemed a little anticlimactic at the end. Just one that's not harmful.
That's their only goal. Get to someplace less harmful.
Right.
But Otherworld all starts in Egypt. We get to meet the Sterling family.
Mm-hmm. They're your classic American family.
And what we see off the top seems to be, to me, what's going to be a motif of this series is whenever we see them all together, they're like enjoying a meal. Like every time we see them all as a unit, it's always breakfast time, dinner time, some sort of meals happening.
Well, it's because they're a wholesome family who's being thrust into a difficult situation.
All right, let's go through them. There's the dad, Hal.
Yeah, and you got your mom is June.
Well, do you want to talk about them individually?
Oh, okay, okay. Well, I don't know. What is there to say about Hal? He's an engineer.
He's in Egypt to build a hydroelectric dam.
Yeah, and he's I don't know. He's tall.
He's a very classic TV dad. Mm-hmm. I think everyone in this show is very classic to their character type.
Oh, and I should mention something we've seen before in TV shows in the 80s. There's at least 2 scenes in these episodes where the parents yell at their kids, and I really enjoyed it.
Hal is also excited for the planetary alignment of 6 planets that's happening in an hour and 45 minutes. It'll be the first time in 10,000 years.
Yeah, who wouldn't be excited?
And Hal is played by Sam Groom, who, strangely enough, played Dr. Earnshaw in Time Travelers that we watched last week.
Is that right? I didn't recognize him at all.
Yeah, he was the star of Time Travelers, and apparently is the star of Otherworld as well. I had no idea. That's not why we picked him.
That's weird. You know what's funny? I didn't even recognize him.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably 10 years older, but it's the exact same actor.
That's funny.
Then you've got the mom, June.
Yeah, Hal and June.
She's a veterinarian, classic TV mom, and not given a lot to do.
Well, she's given a little bit more in the second episode. The first episode, though, she doesn't have a lot. But here's the question. So she's a veterinarian, but they've all gone to Egypt because of his engineering gig. She's just put her practice on hold?
It seems like everyone just put their lives on hold for this trip to Egypt. I think this is more like, oh, we can go to Egypt for 6 months. What a treat for the kids. You're right, though. I think she has a little more to do. And from what I'm seeing in these episodes, I'm betting everybody kind of gets like their own standalone episode.
I think so, yeah.
Because it's a big cast. Because then we get to the teenage son, Trace.
I'll tell you all you need to know about Trace. He's horny.
Oh, he's so horny.
Like he is, and we've seen this before. I think the last time I remember is, what was the show about the alien family that came with little
Earthbound.
Earthbound. He's playing the role. It's the same role that the daughter had in that show.
Well, I mean, I've said it once, I'll say it again. These are all classic 80s tropes. Like, he's a classic 80s male teenager. Mm-hmm. He's lamenting their time in Egypt. Like I said, it's a beautiful trip for the family to take, but he just wants to go back to California for the smog, rock and roll, MTV, and trendy LA chicks.
Oh, you missed one thing, Luke, on that list.
What's that?
He also wanted to cruise the boulevard.
Oh, yeah, you got to cruise that boulevard. They then also have a teenage daughter named Gina, who is basically a carbon copy of the sun, except a female.
Yeah. She doesn't seem to be as horny, though.
Oh, she's desperate to get back to her boyfriend of 6 months in the United States.
That's true.
And maybe is a smoker. At some point, someone accuses her of smoking in her hotel.
Yeah. I'm hoping we learn more about the daughter. I think of all the characters... Oh, no, that's not true. The other son maybe gets the least to do.
She is definitely very lightly characterized this episode. I think mostly I see her babysitting the youngest son. But she does seem to seems to agree with Trace on most things about, like, they wish they were back in LA. They wish they were back with their friends. They seem to be very, I mean, probably true to reality. They're very similar in their interests and likes and not wanting to have to hang out with their parents.
Right.
And then, yes, the final son, kind of a precocious 10-year-old maybe, Smith.
Which, should we say it now? He gets recast after the pilot?
Oh, does he? I didn't notice.
Yeah, so he's originally played by Brandon Crane, and he gets recast as Chris Herbert. Weirdly, the kid who plays him in the first episode, Brandon Crane, I only knew him from, he was a recurring character on The Wonder Years.
Oh, really?
But anyways, yeah, it's a new kid on the second episode. But I'm surprised you didn't notice. He looks entirely different.
Oh, really? I mean, I think this is how little I paid attention to the child.
Right, fair enough.
I mean, he mostly seems to be, in these two episodes, like, he seems to be building machines. He seems to have the ability to build a machine or a prank.
Yeah.
And seems surprisingly unsupervised.
Yeah, it's only when the daughter is watching him that he has any sort of supervision. Otherwise, it's like, I don't know, we'll just leave you in this other dimension.
I mean, I will say that because after breakfast, we cut to a scene where the whole family's posing, I guess, for a photo. They've got some stranger about to take a family photo, and they look around and they're like, where'd Smith go? And Smith is in a crowd in Egypt wandering up to them, and he's found a tour guide named Ahmed. And what I really liked is not only does Smith get into this family photo, but Ahmed joins the family photo as well. And I thought he was like their tour guide, but he's just like a stranger that Smith found in a crowd.
What I thought was weirder than this, and maybe that's just what I'm focusing on, is don't you think they would have they've been there 4 months. Don't you think they would have got all the tourist photos they needed at that point?
You can never have enough family photos. Got to build those memories.
I suppose. But like they're just taking a picture like in a market. I'm like, guarantee they've got that picture already. But anyways, yeah, Ahmad's wearing he's wearing, I can't remember, I think it might be like an LA Dodgers hat or something. He's wearing some sort of baseball cap. And the joke there is he's not American and thus he doesn't know how silly he is.
I mean, this is perhaps a very culturally insensitive character, but I will say I ended up really liking Ahmed because this entire sequence that's coming up is, I think, inadvertently a real critique of, like, shitty tourism from, like, North America.
Yeah, I think there's probably something there.
I don't know if it was fully realized as they were doing it, but Ahmed ends up being this, like, straight man to a clueless American family in a way that was very funny to me, because essentially he comes up to them, he offers them an exclusive VIP tour of the interior of the pyramids for only $10 American.
And the dad's all like, that seems really ridiculous, and then cut to they're taking the tour.
That's what I thought too. Looking at his like low rent photocopied brochure where he has photos of John Wayne and Humphrey Bogart, Elvis Presley, 2 presidents on it, and he's just like, yeah, I've given all these people tours, and the dad's just like, I don't believe that for 1 second, but let's pay $10 to this man to take us into a pyramid.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, they go and take the tour they're in the pyramids, correct?
That's right. They go into a pyramid. I found it really funny too, because like not moments before that, the dad was telling them it's only an hour, 45 minutes to this planetary alignment. And I'm really excited to see it. And then next he's like, I'll just spend it inside of a pyramid.
Well, maybe he thought the tour was only going to be like a half hour or something.
And Ahmed's leading them on this tour. He's kind of giving them a history lesson about the pyramids. It's very like colorful about like how they were built and what the people who lived here were like. And there's this great moment, and this is where I started realizing that I really liked Ahmed, is the little boy Smith is listening to him like give this spiel, and Smith's, you know, as a precocious kid, he's just like, how do you know any of that's true? And Ahmed turns to him and he's like, please shut up.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Me and Ahmed, we get it. Please shut up, kid. I don't want to hear you speak. I don't even notice we changed actors. That's how little I care about you.
Yeah.
And as they kind of reach the inner chamber of, I believe they call it Ordel in the pyramid, Ahmed turns to Hal and says, all right, well, now we're in the middle of the pyramid. It'll be another $10 to conclude this tour.
Yeah. And did you feel like the dad's reaction was perhaps more than was justified?
Well, this is where I think is a real critique of like North American tourism. Because, like, they agreed to go on a slave labor value tour of $10. And then when they get in there, the dad just enraged. He's just like, I would never pay you another $10. How dare you? I already gave you $10 to do a tour. Which I liked. Ahmed's response was like, yes, this is an old trick.
But what I like is he's just like, I'm never going to give you $10. And Ahmed's like, okay then, and just blows out I think he has a candle or a lighter or something, like it's a flame that is leading the way, and it's just like, now they're in darkness. And he's like, yeah, Ahmed's taking off. He's not getting his $10. There you go. Find your own way out.
Well, absolutely. It's just like, you knew what you were getting into. You knew this tour was too good to be true. You took it because you're greedy. You're a greedy American.
Yeah. Anyway, so now they're in darkness. And this is, I think, the first time where they mention that the daughter might be a closet smoker because she has a lighter on her.
Yes, but while they're in the darkness in the middle of this pyramid in the Chamber of Ordell, I think we can assume, they never explicitly say it, but we can assume the planetary alignment happens at this exact moment.
Yes.
Because they are sucked into a vortex.
And it's like, I don't even know how you describe this. It's like, what you kind of see is like shadow images of their outline kind of surrounded by a circle, and they sort of like spin around, and like you see a lot of lights and flashing, and then they all end up like in water.
Yeah, they like fall through a completely black void for a while, and then they emerge from this sea, very much like Riverworld, if you remember that show we watched. And they're on the banks of a desert with there's a huge, I don't know if it was a tower or just like
it's like a rock face of some sort.
Rock face that's flashing them with red light. And they've clearly traveled to some new world.
What I like, though, is like, they're surprised, but like, I always feel in these things, people aren't shocked enough. Like, I would be flipping my wig.
I will say, for this family, they are really easygoing. Everything they're going to encounter this episode, nothing really phases them too badly. They kind of just are like, well, let's just keep going. We'll figure this out.
Like, and obviously you're going to have the scene later on where it's sort of, they realize they're not on Earth.
In Kansas anymore.
Yeah, they're not in Kansas anymore, that moment. But what I like is, that moment happens a little later than you think. Like, you would think if you go into a pyramid, you were shot through the universe, and then in this weird water, it's like, you would think something's happening. But right after this, they go walk, and they're like, don't worry, I think the dad's like, I'm sure we just keep walking, we'll find our way back.
Yeah, they wander the desert all night long until they finally spot a road, and driving down that road is a cool little sci-fi self-driving car that, as they'll tell us later, drives via a magnetic propulsion system under the ground. But it's like a pill. It looks like a little pill.
I just referred to it as a Tesla the whole time.
It did look like something Elon Musk would design.
Yeah.
And inside of that car that pulls over for them is the series villain, Commander Krull.
Yeah, played by who?
Jonathan Banks, probably best known these days as Mike Ehrmantraut from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
Which he looks pretty much the same, just with hair.
Yeah, he's a bit younger, but he's always had that kind of look. And he's great. I actually am like happy that he's in the show.
He's a good
pretty
villain.
Competent actor. He's definitely raising the bar of the acting in the show.
Agreed, yeah.
And he tells them they're in a forbidden zone. He wants to see their permission slip to be there. And of course, they've just arrived. They don't know what he's talking about. So they get in a bit of a struggle. There's this weird moment where I guess the son Trace goes for the laser gun that's in his belt and like shoots the laser gun off a bank shot off the car, basically knocking Commander Krull out.
The way it was shot was weird. I think what they were trying to imply is that they jumped for the gun at the same time he pulled it out and was trying to shoot them. I think he actually shot the car that reflected and hit him back.
I see.
Oh, I should mention, though, he's dressed almost like a Nazi.
I mean, we'll come to know them that he worked for the Zone Troopers, and they're very much kind of some sort of like guard to whatever the government is. So they're very much like out there controlling the population. So 100%.
They even have like a hand signal, but it's like almost like a reverse Heil Hitler.
Oh, really? I missed their hand signal.
Yeah, they instead of putting their hand upwards, they hit their chest and then point it downwards.
Interesting. I'll have to watch for that going forward. Once he's knocked out, Hal steals his access crystal, which it looks like a crystal wand, but we'll come to know this quite a bit because old Commander Krull's in trouble for losing it. It's a pretty much all access crystal.
It's a nice little backdoor out of problems in the show. If needed, they're like, well, don't worry, we always have this access. What is it called? Access crystal that is essentially like a a key to every door and every computer it will get them in.
Yeah, it's a key card that's going to get them through everything because he has such high access. And then after they steal his access car crystal, they steal his future car and then proceed to crash it a couple kilometers down the road.
Yeah, because he doesn't know how to drive it. But like, because it has the only panels in the car are sort of like geometric shapes that, they're like little panels that you touch. Although it did seem like to have it be directional, there was actual like arrow things. Like, I think I could have figured it out.
I know, it did seem very funny. I was just like, oh, you stole the car, great. And it's like, oh, you crashed it very quickly.
Yeah, so they crash the car and then just get out. We're like, I guess we can walk the rest of the way.
And yes, they end up outside of a very futuristic-looking city. They go inside, and it's just full of very human-looking people, and they're all very friendly toward them.
All dressed like it's 1985.
It all looks very normal, except there seems to be like sewer access, but with ladders, and people are like kind of climbing in and out of these like underground sewer tunnels the whole time. And there seems to be weird trucks driving by full of rocks and like not warnings about radiation, but like radiation signs that say like everything's fine.
Yeah, I did. The first time I noticed someone coming out of the ground in one of those little like sewer grates, it made me laugh so hard because I just didn't expect it because everything's normal, and then suddenly this guy just popped out of the ground, all very casual.
It was really well done, that establishing shot where they walk through. No one comments on these very strange like ladders into the ground. People are just very casually coming in and out of them. And I was like, I gotta know more about these tunnels.
So they're now the odd people out, but it seems like everything is fine. For a odd world, nothing is that different.
Yeah, no one notices they're out of place and seem very happy to see them. In fact, they end up getting in a line they see because they're sort of like, oh, you should get in this line. And when they get there, a very annoyed bureaucrat at the end is just like, you're new here? I'm already above my quota for new arrivals. But he's just like, whatever. This always happens. I'm going to assign you a house. I'm going to assign you some jobs. And then I'm going to go complain to my supervisor. They're constantly messing up the quota system here. Did you like this bureaucrat? I was just like, this bureaucrat must really speak to Jordan.
That's what I was going to say. If there's one character I relate to, it's this guy. I understood his frustration. I felt for him, and I feel like he's getting a raw deal.
He's just having a hard day. He's just like, why does everyone mess up things and then I have to fix them?
Yeah, I got him. He's me in this world. Unfortunately, not the star of the show. You're more like Hal, aren't you?
Just like an easygoing dad?
Yeah.
They're sent off to orientation with a dozen other newcomers now, and they get to meet the governor of this province, the province of Sarlex.
Mm-hmm. No, I didn't catch his name. Is his name Coco?
You know what? I missed it too. Everyone has like crazy names, so it's hard to keep track of everything that's going on.
Yeah, I think like I rewound it, I watched it again, I looked it up, and I couldn't find, but what I wrote down was Coco. So let's call him Coco. Governor Coco.
Governor Coco is giving everyone who's here, these newcomers, kind of a speech about welcome to the community. We're looking forward to setting you up at your new jobs. And Hal kind of is like looking around being like, oh, well, clearly this means everybody who's here is new to this dimension. So Hal like stands up, introduces himself, and then is just like, so did everybody else come through a pyramid or what?
Yeah. And of course everyone's like, what? Pyramid? Huh? And then he's like, oh, me, I, you, forget what I said.
Yeah, it's not a shared experience. He backtracks very quickly, and they head off to their new home in a classic 1980s suburb.
Yeah, and what I like about the home is it doesn't look that futuristic. Like, it just looks like a normal 80s house, but there's a couple of details I noticed. One, there is a glowing pyramid on the countertop of a very normal kitchen.
Yes.
And then the other thing, my favorite thing, which I will say will give this one whole point on my review, silver bed sheets.
Dude, get some for your home.
Yeah, they're the best.
It's 2020.
But I got a question for this house, Luke, and I don't want to get us too off track. We've seen that the vehicle transport is driven by an access code. So seemingly the technology in this world is very different. And I'll get it that the clothes are all the same and stuff. But it looks like everything else in the house, and there's no ever reference to have any difficulties like cooking or using any of the appliances in the house. So do they run just like Earth, but the cars run on access codes?
It is really weird. Everything seems essentially like our world in the 80s with just a few variations in technology, but none so extreme. Like, they're definitely slightly more technologically advanced, but basically everything's evolved identically. Like, everyone's in the same suburbs. Mm-hmm. Everyone's working in the same, like, downtown office buildings. It all is basically the same with some minor differences.
Yeah, it's the exact same. You just get a weird pyramid on your counter. Yeah,
you get one glowing pyramid per house. And they've been kind of given their new lives in this assignment folder. Hal's been assigned a job as at a newspaper.
Yeah, and she gets a job as a housewife.
Yes, she is made a homemaker, where this job basically is her going to the grocery store to shop for cans of meat and good food.
And there's, this weird sort of thing that the grocery store has these very generic, more than generic, like just cans of meat. But I thought that was a bit of a turn they missed. I was really hoping that we would get a shot of her opening the can and it was like a repulsive looking, jelly, veiny sort of miscellaneous meat, and I thought that would have been great, but that's not really what this show is.
Even when she has dinner for them, they kind of just scan over the plates, and I think it kind of looks like a gray mush, but everyone seems to be enjoying it. So I mean, it's good food in a can. So, but they didn't really make enough hay of it. I agree.
Yeah, I was like, this is a real scene for something gross, but
that grocery store was great though. It was just like cans everywhere, all white labeled with just like single words on them: corn, meat.
It was weird, though, that corn was specified, but meat wasn't. You thought it would just be, like, vegetable.
Well, I mean, one of them was just called good food, which I loved.
That's true.
Then the kids are sent off to school. They've been just basically assigned the grades they were in. They go to a very typical 80s school. Trace immediately just falls in love with the girl in his class.
And he's going to do this essentially in the next episode, too. That's all we're going to really learn about his character is he loves the ladies.
If he sees a girl, they're in love.
Yeah.
What I liked was Gina was sent off to her class where what we see is her teacher smelling a pork cylinder, which looks like a hot dog, and she's learning about how to transform a pork cylinder into a meat puppy with flares.
I missed that entirely.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Blew my mind. I don't know what a meat puppy with flares is. I don't know what a pork cylinder is. Looks like a hot dog. But also, June was just at that grocery store buying that can of meat. And when she asked the clerk what kind of meat it was, he was confused, like there were no kinds of meat. But there's clearly pork.
It's weird because they do, this show does a lot of like really quick sort of montage-like scenes. And them at school is one of them where it's like, we want to make sure that you know that all the kids are at school. So here's the quick thing they're all learning. And we see the young boy, too, and he learns something, too, doesn't he?
No, nothing. They just show him in class, and he looks up, and he sees a zone trooper, and then he looks back to his classwork.
That's right. Yeah. So we just know he's in school. That's the important part.
They definitely use montages to do kind of the fish out of water gags very quickly. I wish they'd given us a few more, but I wanted more fish out of water stuff in this world.
I would argue there isn't really any. That's not what this show wants to be. This show doesn't want to have those kind of Galactica 1980 comedy bits of not understanding how to use change. That's not what this show is.
Yeah, it's a real mix. They need it to be an action adventure, but I think they do want some genuine comedy, but I don't think in the pilot they find the right balance. Mm-hmm. It's still entertaining, but it could have been more.
I agree.
Anyway, meanwhile, their presence in town is kind of starting to get noticed because obviously they're not supposed to be there, but they've taken a home, they've taken jobs. That bureaucrat who sort of assigned them stuff, he goes down to one of those sewer ladders and he goes to complain to a bald guy and this like completely like cue ball headed man about fabricating a whole family above quota that he had to put into a house.
Yeah, and this is where we start understanding that things might look normal, but there's a lot happening quite literally under the surface.
Yes, this man appears to build human beings, and as the bureaucrat is arguing with him about building a whole family he didn't need, like he's just like, this is worse than the time you sent me a whole crew of spectral miners I didn't ask for.
That's a show.
Well, what is a spectral miner? I can't wait to find out. They're arguing, they're demanding they get each other's units checked. It becomes very clear these aren't humans. They must be some sort of like robot of some sort.
Yeah, they're androids.
And this is basically cleared up when Krull shows up in town. He's furious with Governor Coco because he accuses him of harboring a bunch of plasmoid terrorists.
Oh, and Luke, I want to ask you about this. They mention the terrorist many times in this show. Well, not many times, but they mention it. But you do get the sense that this is what we're going to learn is there's a bit of a
totalitarian.
There you go. Society happening, and that things are very restrictive. But do we think we're going to see like these sort of rebellious people, like gangs of people in future episodes?
I don't know. I assume so. Like there definitely seems to be, if not totalitarian, at least authoritarian maybe society going on here. And the zone troopers clearly exist to maybe keep those elements at bay, but they seem to be in pretty complete control right now from what we're seeing. I don't know. It's a good question. Because, yeah, like, he's mad that someone stole his card and his access card, and he's in trouble for it. And he's basically accusing them of there being terrorists in this town. And we sort of skimmed past it, but I have never seen a piece of science fiction before that invented a new name for robots or androids and called them plasmoids. I think plasmoids are a fucking amazing name.
Yeah, plasmoids is good.
I would watch so much about plasmoids.
I think it will be much to Steve's chagrin, but I think people who listen to this podcast should be called plasmoids.
Yeah. The listeners are plasmoids?
Yeah.
Well, we'll let them decide how they feel about that. Anyway, so we kind of know that, like, maybe the walls are closing in. People are starting to notice that maybe someone has infiltrated society that shouldn't be there. Meanwhile, Trace has a new girlfriend, and they're going on dates. They're having a great time.
Yeah, it progressed really quickly.
Yeah, she's telling them about a legend that exists in this other world, about these stone monoliths that we've seen. They're sort of scattered around the world. They're kind of like have hieroglyphics of eyes and things on them. And she's basically explaining that there was a legend in this place that people from other worlds used to travel here, and they would follow the monoliths to Emar, where they would return to their own worlds as kings and sorcerers. And this idea that people used to come and follow these monoliths, I guess, is to set up the engine of the show, is that, like, there is a way to get home. You just have to get to Emar. You just have to get to Oz, and the wizard will send you home. But I do like the idea that, like, the people who came here would leave and would take some technology with them to, like, rule their previous worlds they came from.
Do you think that's what they're implying?
She does specifically say in the legends when people got to Emar, they would return home as wizards or as kings and sorcerers. And that just really, I was just like, man, oh man, that's coming home with a lot of power.
I guess I was more focused on the burgeoning love story between a human and a plasmoid.
Do you even remember the girlfriend's name?
Oh yeah, no, I do. I wrote her down. Her name is Nova.
Nova. I at some point I'm just like, there's no way I need to remember this character's name.
No, I actually think she only mentions it maybe the last like 10 minutes of the episode.
That's very funny. But while they're on their date and he's kind of getting a little bit of the exposition for what the series is going to be, his family's going over to dinner with their wacky mustachioed neighbor.
He was exactly like Ned Flanders, wasn't he?
It was great. About a scene earlier where they're having their own family dinner. There's a knock at the door, and there's this really tense moment where they're like, who's going to be at the door? And the dad opens the door up, and there's just this, like, Ned Flanders with a big mustache, and he's just like, hi, I'm your neighbor. And the dad's like, would you like to come in? And he's just like, I don't know you, and I don't trust you. And it hangs there for a beat. He's just like, just kidding. I'm your wacky neighbor.
And then it suddenly, because you think it's going to be like Alf or something with like neighbors always trying to peek in the windows.
Yeah, he's just there to invite them to dinner. And they go to dinner, and this dinner is also kind of to fill in, maybe not the world of the series as much, but certainly the world of Sarlacc, the province they're in. So they confirm everyone who lives there is an android, and that's because Sarlacc is a radioactive mining province, and humans can't stay there long without getting sick. The mum's starting to feel it. Commander Krull is quite susceptible to the radiation, so he can't stay there for long. This is a truly plasmoid society.
Okay, so I have a question here. So this is a plasmoid society, and they can create incredibly sophisticated androids, right? So they look like humans. Their skin is like humans. They have feelings. They have thoughts. They have aspirations. They have their own individual personalities and quirks, seemingly the ability to learn. Why would you bother even making teenagers and putting them in school? Why not just make them all adults that already have all the information you need? Why would you create an android and then put it into school so it has to learn stuff?
Well, I can kind of answer that, I think.
Do you think so?
Sort of. And I mean, it also brings up a question with these androids that's very funny. And I think maybe this is all tied together because the neighbors here lend them a book with the history of their, like, entire province and the plasmoid sort of, I guess, race they are, whatever they are. And in that book, they read that, like, 600 years ago, there was just one model of plasmoid that worked in the mines. But it was, like, highly intelligent and got bored very quickly. And that sort of first model was just like, we're going to just create a society exactly like our creators to, like, give us that diversity and that, like, interest in life. And I was just like, why do they need a book to tell them this? Like, the neighbors couldn't remember the whole story. Like, I thought, like, you're androids, you're plasmoids. Shouldn't you have this all in your memory? I'm guessing when they diversified 600 years ago to build a society, they must have built themselves to be super flawed, because the plasmoids themselves seem to forget information or like not know things. Like there's no reason they would have to be.
Right.
My assumption is the idea is they've created themselves to be like just like humans, so they suffer all the same problems.
But do you think there's no indication that they age?
They must. I think they must age.
Okay, well then if they age, then that answers my question, because again, it's not even so much about the my question about the ability to learn. It would just seem weird to me if I made an android and that android's 15 years old.
Forever.
And they have to go to the 10th grade forever. That just is my point. It's like, that seems weird. And also, if they have normal human feelings, that android's not going to be very happy very long.
I took it as, I mean, it is a bit of hand waving, but I think it is also maybe what they're aiming for is I think they're trying to say these androids could have just been like Datas, like live forever as an android in that one stage of life. But they got bored and like chose to start what is essentially a human existence.
Right.
So I assume they age and they like go through those same things. They don't have perfect memories. Bureaucracy is bad. People go over quota and they have to fight about it.
Yeah. Oh, and let me ask you though. Do you think Nova falls under the trope of born sexy yesterday?
Did you find her sexy?
Well, no. I mean, I didn't. But I think there's some hint of that, of like, she's a character that is a childlike person. She was born, yesterday, I think she says, and the day previous, and she is only there to create a love story for one of the characters.
And it's funny, you do mention that, and maybe it does, but you're actually reversing what is said. Is that conversation does happen, but it's because she's talking to Trace, and Trace doesn't seem to know anything about the province.
Oh, you're right.
And Trace is just like, I guess I was born yesterday.
Yeah, so he's born sexy yesterday.
Yeah, I think maybe Trace is the one who was born sexy yesterday.
I just need someone to be.
And I mean, Trace is sexy.
Oh, he's my least favorite of the family.
I mean, it really is going to be your level of, I guess, tolerance of just tropes, because the entire family are just tropes.
Yeah, that's true. The sister's just dying for an episode.
At least switch it up a little. Give us a different teenager.
Exactly.
Anyway, after they have this dinner and it becomes clear that they're living in a society of plasmoids and that it's full of radiation, that's why the mom's sick, and basically they now know that even the gossip around town is Commander Krull's kicking around looking for some plasmoid terrorists. So the family's just like, all right, we got to pack up. We got to get out of here. Clearly, it's not safe for multiple reasons.
As much as they like those good food meals, it's time to go.
And Trace gets home from his date and they like fill him in. They're like, you're not going to believe this, but your new girlfriend, she's an android, and we got to get out of here. And Trace's immediately is just like, screw you, Mom and Dad. I have friends here. I have a great life in Sarlacc. I'm staying. And he runs off to like sneak through his girlfriend's window in a classic like 80s style rom-com.
Yeah, in the span of like one day, he has met an android, fallen in love with the android, and has chosen the android over his family.
Yeah, he claims to have many friends now. He loves it here.
I mean, what's not to love?
Yeah, they've been here maybe 74 hours.
Do you think it would have been inappropriate if they had a weird scene where him and the android try to have sex?
Well, we do kind of get a weird scene now because he goes to the android's house and he's just like, my family wants to leave. They're telling me you're some sort of plasmoid, but I don't believe them. And the android looks at me and she's just like, yeah. I'm an android. Are you not an android?
And he's like, no, but anyways, you know.
Well, he's like, I'm a human, and it's very funny. I thought this was going to be a plot point for a second, but she's like, our love can overcome that. That's fine. That's not a big deal. But when Trace gets the information that she's, in fact, not human, but a constructed robot, he's just like, oh, well, in that case, you should just abandon your family and come with me and my family. Like, let's just leave. You and I can just leave. You leave your family behind, and we'll run away. And she's just like, well, I don't want to leave my family. And he's just like, what do you care? You're not real.
Yeah, I know. It turns really quick. And what I like is like, it's like they're in love. They have this fight about the soul and is one person more real than the other. But then almost as fast as the fight happens, they make up.
They do make up. It was such a funny sequence to me, just watching Trace immediately discount her being a sentient being. He just found out she was an android like 30 seconds before that, and after that he's like, oh, so you're basically just some sort of plaything for me. You should come.
Yeah, but she does get to prove her point. She brings him underground and shows what essentially is like a mainframe, like a master hub that is Do you think it's connected to the androids at all times? You see like a little light that has like thousands and thousands of light that's apparently either a representative or are directly connected to each android.
Yeah, this kind of gets explained at some point. Obviously, this is not like what the show wants to get into. It's not all about the ethics and the morality of like androids and how they exist as like sentient human beings. But they do kind of imply that this mainframe exists. It seems to store all of their memories, but they themselves seem to be autonomous because later they will wipe the memories of the computer so that nobody remembers, or so that the computer doesn't remember that Trace and his family was there, but the individual units will still have that memory, and the authorities can't access their personal internal memories, only the computer bank that stores the long-term files.
Yeah, it's a long way to go.
It's weird. So I thought it was interesting, like, there's something interesting going on here, but this show obviously doesn't have time, and it maybe is not interested in exploring it, but I think you pointing out is right. There's something going on here. Someone has an idea, but it's not fully fleshed out.
It actually feels a lot like the original Star Trek, but even less so. Like, at least they raised these moral issues and kind of used everything to talk around it. This has it somewhere in the background, and you get a feeling of it, but they're like, yeah, but we're going to keep it running around.
And it is, I think, the part of this pilot is that's there. Like, there's clearly some big ideas in the background. But they're also like, we're making a family show that's an action adventure, so we have to make sure that like stays in the foreground, and we're hitting all the beats of a teenager falling in love and the mom not feeling comfortable in this town. So it's really it's a tough balancing act they're trying to hit, I think.
I actually think maybe my least favorite part of the show is the family element.
Well, now that it's all out there that she's a plasmoid and they need to get out of town and she's not going to come with them, they do make up a plan, and Nova goes and gets the family. She leads them down to the tunnels where they're going to escape to. I mean, before they can quite get to the tunnels, though, Hal gets called out by one of the zone troopers who's busy scanning every robot in town to see if he or she is a terrorist of some sort. And there's a bit of a struggle. Hal ends up getting a laser gun at this point, and they're racing through these tunnels under the ground trying to escape zone troopers. It's a very Star Wars-esque like fight on a ship.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of corridor laser battles, and I'm just like, somebody watched Star Wars before they made it.
And it doesn't look bad at all.
No, it looks fine. But, we kind of have this action sequence that leads them into the master computer that's known as the, let me see if I can pronounce this, a Solitron brain computer.
Yeah, but did you like how you can control it using a Van de Graaff generator?
Yes, it is. It is one of those little balls that shoots electricity into your hand when you touch it.
Yeah, that's the best way to communicate.
It's very funny because they're like, this is the computer we're talking about. It stores all the memories for the entire society, and she actually says that this computer essentially acts as the super ego for all the plasmoids.
Sure.
I'm not entirely sure what that means, but why not? And basically, they use it to talk to an AI. So the computer has a voice, and they want to open old military tunnels that lead out of the province. It'll give them a way to escape, and they'll basically wipe out the records they were ever in Sarlacc, essentially giving them the chance to get away from Krull. And they do all this. They open the tunnel, they escape, and Krull runs in a second too late. He's like, "Where'd the terrorists go?" And he goes to talk to the same AI computer they were just using, and this time the AI computer's very sassy with him.
Yeah, it does also have a personality. I like that.
It does. The AIs are kind of fun in this because he basically goes and uses the what do you call that device?
It's the Van de Graaff generator.
The Van de Graaff generator. He touches it and he talks to the AI and he's just like, "Open up that military tunnel for me immediately, AI." And the AI turns to him and says, "Sorry, I'm busy." And he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Deleting memories." Krull's just like, "Well, stop that." And the computer says, "Too late."
Yeah, I was like, those are the worst. There's nothing worse than getting a sassy computer, especially when you're in a rush.
I just love that. It's just an AI that talks back to you.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to get it in the next episode, too. The computer they talk to also has a personality.
Very sassy. But it's, this kind of leads to the end of the episode where Krull's vowing to hunt them down and get his crystal back no matter what. And we get a VO that's apparently, we're told, is the diary of Hal, talking about how they're going to walk to Emar now and get themselves home. And that kind of, is a pretty decent pilot setting up what's going to happen, the truly bizarre world they're in.
Yeah, all the chess pieces have been put in place now. We're ready to go.
Yeah, it was an interesting pilot. So I was very curious to see where they're going to go after the first one. And I'll tell you this, episode 2 did not let me down.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. The Zone Troopers Build Men. A great title.
IMDb summary is...
From Tarka, we carried away something of great value. A deeper understanding of strength and compassion. I had seen my son become a man, and our family had felt the power of courage. Somehow those weeks of being apart had drawn us closer together, and we were ready to face another world.
Trace is drafted into being a zone trooper, so as the family tries to find a way to get him out, Trace undergoes training and clashes with the commander. And that was courtesy of rsc0411 at yahoo.com.
Now, should we say, I didn't notice that the star of the show was in a previous show we'd watched, but we have a guest star in this, who I think is a favorite of ours. And do you want to say now who the guest star is?
You want to wait till we get to him? Because he doesn't come up till halfway through the episode.
Okay, all right. Well, get on the edge of your seat, because you're going to need to.
A real teaser for what's to come.
Mm-hmm.
What I was excited about is off the top of this, though, was precaps are back.
Oh, yeah, I know. And they're pretty long. But I should say, though, we have two different openings, but really action-packed opening.
Yeah, well, I mean, precap tells us what's going to happen all episode. Then we get an opening credit sequence that explains the concept for the series, and maybe fills us in a little bit more about what's going on in, like, how they got to Otherworld. They sort of talk about how these worlds lie, I think it was in my opening for the episode, they lie beyond our seeing, beyond the beyond, and that the Great Pyramid is a barricade between this world and other worlds, I guess. So this is kind of how they've ended up here.
But with, like, pulsing 80s synth music.
Great music. I love the theme to this show.
Yeah, it's good.
And, you know, it's a very long opening, actually, because then there's credits and, like, action-packed montages. But it was a good lead into the show, I think.
But I was thinking, if I was just, in 1985, you know, going to the TV and changing the dial, I'd have been so confused as to what this show is about. Even with the opening, I was just like, it just seems like it's just random images. Like, it's just like, this is action that you'll want to sit and watch.
I mean, it definitely is trying to lure you in with just, like, it's the MTV generation, I guess. It's just nonstop stimulus.
Yeah, exactly.
But this week, the Sterling family, they're in an agricultural town or maybe suburb of Tarka, I believe it's called.
Yeah, something like that.
Thanks to the voiceover we know, they're already tired of running. They've given up. They've used the access crystal to start new lives in Tarka. Hal's an engineer in town. June's become a dental technician, which is not a lateral move from veterinarian.
I thought the same thing. I have a feeling this was a little bit of for some reason we don't like her being a vet, so let's change her to a dentist.
The kids are back in school, and I will say, it seems like if they have not been there for weeks, they have been there for months.
Yeah, it looks like they've been there for quite some time. And it is funny how quick they've given up, huh?
Yeah, from the first episode till now, they basically am like, oh, you know what? Fuck it. We're not getting home. Let's just set up a new life here.
Yeah, it's really weird. And they're just fine with it. And there's a weird moral in this episode, and I don't know if it makes sense or works. And I don't know if that's just retroactively, but there's a real moral in this episode about, like, working hard.
Yeah, well, and I really like, too, is when they basically have settled down, and they are essentially in the same town they were before. It's just a real suburb in the 80s, just a classic school from the 80s. It just feels like everywhere they go is just like an 80s suburb, which is kind of fun, but is also hilarious.
I was a little disappointed when I saw that, because I thought, you have everything now in front of you. You've opened up, you can go to any dimension. Any different place they go in this world could be anything. And it's like, oh, we're just going to have, because we have these sets, we're going to be back in a normal 80s school. It's like, well, have everyone be lizards or something.
Every province is just the same 80s suburb.
I know, it's just weird.
But what we see is Trace is in school. He's got an AI in his locker, which is great. This is like a little computer screen in his locker that talks to him. But because they've been there so long, he apparently has had time to get such bad grades that it's threatening him with a yellow warning of some sort.
The computer's like reprimanding him for sucking.
Yeah, he's just been doing so bad at school. And very quickly we get to see him head to class. And what class is he attending?
They're just learning about corn.
Yeah, it's corn class.
And it didn't make any sense. I know it's like kind of like a funny gag, like, can you believe you're doing it? But like, have they just been learning about that one vegetable this whole time?
It is a farming community, so my assumption is every class in high school is about a different vegetable.
I think you could put a few of those together.
I loved corn class, Jordan. They pull up holograms of the corn they grow, and the corn is like weird and fat.
Yeah, I think it just was a bad-looking generated image.
I just thought it was just weird alien corn.
Well, all I know is corn's a required course. That's all I know.
And they immediately are told it's time to take your corn exam. And Trace is too busy making eyes at the girl across from him to pass the class.
And there's a few things. So you take the test, and at the end of the class, you walk and you put it into like a big computer that's got like a slot for paper, and it sends out your mark right away. I like that they have that for marking, but they're still using a letter system for grading because he gets a D.
He gets a D. It's classic Scantron. Remember those?
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets a D. He's failing class, but it doesn't matter. He's met a girl just like last time. The first girl he sees in class, he's in love with.
And she's charmed.
She's into him. Yeah, for sure. She's very impressed that he hates school and also hates farming. He's not like the other boys around here.
Now, he's a bad boy. He's fallen right into those bad boy tropes.
He heads home, and it's time for family dinner so the whole family can catch up with each other. And he's getting in trouble for his bad grades. Like, Hal's yelling at him about failing class, and he's telling his dad, "Don't get hyper, Dad."
Is that what he says? Don't get hyper?
Yeah.
But what I like here is, though, this is, I think, the first or second scene where we have the parents essentially yell at their kids, which you don't see on TV anymore. So there was something amusing about that. But I hate to say this, but I'm on Trace's side. The dad's like, "You got to do better in school in this weird dimension that we're in." And he's like, "None of this makes any sense or matters. This is not our lives. Why do you care?" And the dad's point is, it doesn't matter. If you end up on another planet, you still work as hard as you can. I was like, I don't think it applies.
You be a drone to this society.
Yeah, and it's just like, Hal, come on, man. It's nice that you got to be an engineer, apparently. That just transfers over exactly. But the kids have to go in school and learn about corn.
It is true. Hal's making them take school while he's using that access crystal to give himself the VP job at an engineering company right to the top.
Yeah, it's very weird. And I just, again, and this is sort of like, there's a, maybe not moral, but there's some sort of point they're trying to get across about hard work in this and like living up to your expectations. I don't know if it entirely lands.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's that part where it's a family show and you want to give a good lesson, but you're also in a wildly different world full of totalitarian regimes that, like, maybe this stuff isn't good for you.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, you just put your head down, work through it. That's life.
Anyway, after dinner, the phone rings informing them that Trace has flunked out of school and been drafted into the Zone Troopers.
So what happens? He gets taken. The family is all upset.
Do you like that they call you and let you know your son is flunking school, so he's going to be drafted? Like, this is what happens in this world. And about 30 seconds after you get that phone call, these Zone Troopers literally kick open your door and take your son.
They're just efficient.
It was like it was just like, here's a little reminder that unfortunately your son's been drafted. We'll be there in 30 seconds for him.
Yeah, we're in the driveway. So there's a couple points, though. The first being, they only want the dumbest kids to join the army?
Well, let's talk about that, because he gets loaded onto this van to head to the Zone Trooper Academy of Triangula, something like that.
Yeah. And what do they call what are the Zone Troopers in trainings? What's their acronym?
Well, he makes a friend immediately on the bus, a kid named Hobart Rax. Mm-hmm. And he tells them, he's like, "I can't wait to get there. I can't wait to be a zit."
Yeah, zit. Zone Trooper in training. I don't think it really works.
But it's hilarious.
But it's funny, because he's like, "You see, mean we're a bunch of zits?" That's the whole thing. That's the joke, the payoff for that whole setup.
There's no funnier 80s joke than zit.
I guess. No, what I thought this episode was going to be at this point, because what you're going to get is he's going into training now. At first I thought this is going to be Police Academy, and I was kind of excited. But then after we meet, what's this guy's name? The chubby checker?
Hobart Rax. I
thought maybe we were going to get a Full Metal Jacket sort of thing.
I mean, it teeters that way, but it doesn't go all the way there. But you wanted to know who's in the Zone Troopers, who gets drafted. And I can tell you.
Yeah, the dumb kids.
As Hobart tells us, there are 3 ways to get into Zone Trooper training.
Yeah.
1, flunk out of school. 2, volunteer for the Zone Troopers. Mm-hmm. And 3, you can be an F2, a social deviant who got a frontal lobotomy. Sexual deviant, not social.
That's right. They dropped that line in what is essentially a family show, and it seemed so dark.
So you're either bad at school, you, like Hobart, volunteered because you wanted to join the Zone Troopers, or you have you're some sort of sexual pariah.
But do you think, because it's 1985, it might just be something a little innocuous by today's standards?
I'm sorry. Oh, you mean like the sexual deviancy?
Yeah.
100%. Like, it's just like, do you like feet? welcome to the Zone Troopers.
Right. Yeah. It's not just like it's just a series of rapists.
I mean, I assume it is also that.
Right. They're not getting a pass.
But this also kind of fills him in on a few other things. Like, once you're in the Zone Troopers, there's no way out of the Zone Troopers. You are a Zone Trooper for life. The only exception is if you graduate from ZIT training in the top 3 spots of your class, you can get a commission to be an officer, and an officer can resign his or her commission.
If there's a backdoor loophole, there it is.
And it is just to set the stakes of the episode. He needs to do so well in training to get into the top 3, because that's the only way he's ever going to get out of the Zone Troopers. And this just kind of sets the stakes for the episode. And we quickly see him get escorted into this big triangular building, which is Triangular, the training academy for Zits. Mm-hmm. And, he gets some free shots. That's a bonus. They pulls down his pants and a robot pokes his butt.
Yeah. This was one of my favorite parts of the episode, because what we see is it's a line of guys and walking in a row, and they're implying that they keep pulling down their pants and getting the injection in their butt. But it doesn't seem like this robot has anything other than it just pushes forward. So if you accidentally bent over in the wrong area, like, you could do some real major damage, is what I'm saying.
Oh my God, I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. The robot only has one function: push forward.
That's push forward. What if, like, your friend bumps you and your face goes in front of it? Injection to the cheek.
Right in the eyeball.
Right.
All right. Did you also like the other machine they have to go through as they're getting ready after the free shots? The delousing machine, known as the Nucleonic Louse Eradication Adjunctor?
Yeah, it sort of looked like they were time traveling in the Terminator franchise.
Yeah, you walk through a big misty box.
Yeah.
Adjunctor. I've never thought of that as a word before, but great word.
Oh, one other thing. The drill instructors look like they're from Death Race 2000.
Yeah, that's true. It is sort of the start of a Full Metal Jacket for sure. Mm-hmm. But one of the first things they get to do as Zits is go on a tour of the Hall of Heroes, which is some sort of...
The Unification Wars.
Yeah, it's some sort of wax museum tribute to the Unification Wars.
I know you wanted to know more about those wars, didn't you?
Dude, I've got so many notes on the exhibits they look at.
I knew it. Well, they say it's wax, but then we actually see the wax figures move, right?
They're very high-end wax, they say.
Right.
They're lovingly dictated in like some sort of future wax.
What a weird thing if you're training, though. It's like, you're in, this can be really rough and tough. Oh, let's do a walking tour of past glories.
Jordan, I'm going to go through the 3 exhibits we see.
Okay.
So you get to hear all about them again.
Okay.
I don't know if you were as excited about them as I was, but man, oh man, I enjoyed them.
I paid attention, sort of.
Actually, before I do, I do want to note one thing, because we've seen this a few times. And in this, the Zone Trooper symbol is a pyramid. Mm-hmm. And we've seen pyramids in these buildings at that kitchen. And we kind of hear these pyramid represent something. It represents the 3 ideals of the Praetor. And I don't know what the Praetor is, but they keep mentioning it. And I think it might be a leader of some sort.
That's what I thought. I thought it was an organization that's running things.
And those 3 ideals are proficiency, pride, and prowess.
You could do worse.
But my question for you is, a pyramid doesn't have 3 sides.
They're talking about the 2-dimensional triangle. They've made a mistake.
That's what they really are very obsessed with pyramids. But I'm like, you guys are obsessed with triangles, not pyramids.
But I should say, there's another logo we learned too. The military has theirs, and it's a lightning bolt and glass dagger.
Yes, lightning bolt and glass dagger. Very good symbolism. Mm-hmm. Anyway, sorry, I got off topic. Let's talk about these exhibits. These troopers we're going to see, the wax troopers we're going to see, were all awarded the highest honor that you can get, the Crux of Hetquo.
Is that what it's called?
That's what it was called. And the first one we see is a trooper who ordered electro strikes on her own location in order to kill pagan iron warriors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the next one who to receive this honor was a trooper who gave his life in the province of Kobos, trying to reconnect the Pulver Cortex worship module in the Church of Artificial Intelligence, which knocked out all the lights in the province so people could worship the way Emar wants them to.
Yeah. I liked it, though, because we get to see the guy actually, like, they do, like, a reenactment of him, like, electrocuting himself to, to become the martyr.
I love that they're just throwing so much insane world building at me and, like, such, like, I'm like, I don't know what that word is. A cortex, an AI church. This is how we're supposed to worship because of Emar? I'm like, there's so much happening. I can't wait till it's all filled in.
It won't be. But the most important one is the third one.
Yes, we see the final exhibit of a trooper who walked through a jungle to warn of a Triton rebellion attack, and he is one of the few living recipients of the Crux of Hetquo, and it's Commander Krull.
Oh, no. So we know now he's evil and he's a decorated war veteran.
That's right. So this is the tour. They get to see all these great zone troopers of the past, and the tour ends, and they get to meet the Supreme Commandant of Camp Triangular. And Jordan, this is the tease you made.
It's Mark Leonard.
Who, perhaps best known to our audience as Spock's dad, Sarek. Sarek?
Sarek.
I don't know how to pronounce it. But best known to us as...
What's his name? I can't remember his name.
You're so excited about it.
I know,
earlier.
it's just fallen out of my brain. What's his name?
General Urko from Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, it's Urko.
I was also excited.
But I don't think the character's as good as Urko.
No, they didn't use him to his full advantage. They had Urko, but they didn't know how to use it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if there's anything that's truer in life, that's it. If you have Urko, you have to use it to your full advantage.
But essentially the Commandant welcomes the troops and it's like, you guys are going to work hard here, blah, blah, blah. And then he kind of gives them a dare. He's just like, Are any of you brave enough to touch my flaming robot hand?
Yeah, and he sticks his hand up and flames come out of the fingers. Now, here's the thing. If I was there, I could see this a mile away. I'm like, yeah, I'll grab your hand. It's not going to hurt me.
It does seem like the challenge is obviously like, you got to do it. Like, if he's telling you to do it, you got to do it because it's something good's going to happen for you.
Yeah, so of course, Trace is the one who stands forward, goes to grab it, and he sees that it doesn't burn him. And so the commander's like, everyone leave except for you. And the scene that happens after this, though, the conversation, isn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like, you're my new version of me. I'm going to train you up in the best. But what he really is saying is like, I think you're rebellious, and everyone who has done this, I've murdered.
Yeah, it is very funny. The shake my flaming hand bit is actually a trap.
Yeah.
Apparently only one other soldier or trainee has ever attempted that, and the Commandant killed him because his heart was full of rebellion.
But I didn't realize, I think later on they imply that he doesn't have a hand. This is a replacement hand.
Yes.
But up to that point, every time we see him, he just has this glove on, and I just thought he was really committing to the bit that every time he has new recruits and he shows these little flame fingers, but he just keeps that glove on all the time.
Oh, man. Let's hop back home to check on the family real quick, because we'll see them a few times in the episode, but nothing they do matters this episode. Essentially, what we do find out, though, is Hal and June have been looking for an alternate way to get Trace out of the Zone Troopers. They, at some point, use the access crystal to impersonate Commander Krull at a Zone Trooper sub-bit station somewhere, and they're basically there to, take a computer from them so they can see if they can get any data on how to get Trace out of the Zone Troopers.
Yeah, it is funny, though. Their sort of the B-plot, like you're saying, is they kind of Google a lot. And that's basically all it is. And it really amounts to nothing. It's a few scenes that are sort of time wasters. And so you still remember their characters. But this is a Trace episode for all intents and purposes. And nothing they do matters.
Yeah, they essentially are Googling ways to get him out of school. And all the answers are, there's no way.
Yeah, and what I like is they're just like, well, we've been trying. And then that's it. And what we find out is, over the course of the end of, the next few minutes of the episode, Trace is going to stay in training for 13 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, they've been in this town for 3 months, long enough for him to fail at school, and they're there for another 3 months.
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy how they're so flippant about the amount of time that this family has spent.
The one thing I want to talk about, and the only reason I bring up Trace and Hal and this computer they're trying to Google on, is to get this computer, they walk into that substation with the crystal, and they're like, hi, it's me, Commander Krull, just here to borrow a computer for the Praetor. You don't mind, do you, AI robot who runs this substation? Mm-hmm. And Hal goes to grab what is just an 80s desktop computer off of a desk. And he goes to lift it, and he's just like, hey, AI, this computer's locked to the desk. And the AI is like, oh, yeah, we've had a lot of employee theft recently.
I know. I was like, you have? Really?
We never get to learn any more about the employee theft, but there's a throwaway line where an AI is just like, can't trust our employees.
And even this whole scene is kind of pointless other than you get to talk to another computer because there's no real obstacle. He's like, oh, the computer's stuck. They're like, all right, we've released it. And he's like, thanks, got the computer. That was it.
And now they have a home computer.
The only thing I did really like, though, is I like that the computer talking was like an outline of a person's face with lights. That looked kind of cool.
Yeah, it was, what is it called? It's like a grid. There's a term for it, a wireframe. It's a wireframe kind of human face that kind of slightly moves and talks a little bit.
Yeah, I thought that looked good.
like a low quality Max Headroom.
Yeah, I suppose a little bit.
Anyway, getting back to the zone troopers in training, we get there's a bunch of montage sequences where we see them doing like push-ups on electric shock mats and calculating bombing coordinates and running through an obstacle course and lifting up heavy logs.
The only one I really liked was the electricity push-ups.
Yeah, because if your stomach goes too low, you get a little zap.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good. Did you like that better, or did you like in remember that show we watched where the kids were training and they were using digital weights?
Oh, on Earthstar Voyager when they had the mime workout room.
Yeah, what do you like better, that or electricity push-ups?
I like the mime workout room. It's very funny to me, watching all these kids miming.
Yeah.
Anyway, one thing I wanted to note where they trade on is the, I guess, an airplane of some sort. It looks kind of like an ultralight. I don't know if you know what those kind of planes are, but it's kind of like a one-man plane that you can fly by yourself.
Yeah, it's sort of like a split between a plane and a glider.
Yeah. And in this world, they're called S-146 vampires.
Yeah, I like that. I like that they call them vampires. It was good. Although, I thought they could look a little cooler.
They didn't look great, but as they say, they're used for psycho-terror and direct combat assaults. Mm-hmm. And here's the armament I wrote down on them, because I love all this techno-babble. They're armed with a Series 6 Thrasher Electron Volt.
Yeah, that's good.
And they have wing-mounted Banshee Sonic Blast articulators.
That's even better.
I know, right? What a plane.
And it's just a glider.
But kind of the point we see, other than, what training is to get into the Zone Troopers, is we get to see that Hobart Rax sucks at everything.
Yeah, and this is when I thought it was going to be like Full Metal Jacket, because he's sort of a chubby guy that looks like he's having a mental breakdown that will result in horrible violence.
Yes, I believe the what do you call it? The drill sergeants call him Pork Bag.
You can't do that anymore.
Once again, showing they definitely have kinds of meat if they have pork.
You're right. They should have just called him Meat Bag.
And then my favorite part of him failing in training is they all hop in those vampires and they're like, all right, everyone take off a vampire. And you see 3 of them driving down a runway. 2 of them take off and one of them just immediately crashes into a dirt hill. And they're like, Hobart.
Yeah, he's not good. But
essentially what it all culminates in is a classic, they go to the bunks, they're in their racks, and Hobart's sitting in his crying. And what we come to learn is he's escorted off by the military police because he's sent to a prison's province for life for being too weak.
He really struck out. And I mean, the sad thing is he wanted to be a trooper. It's not like he had already flunked out or was a sexual deviant.
And now he's in a prison province for life.
I know. For nothing.
I hope we get to see him again when we go to the prison province.
But he's missing an eye now. He's got a big scar down his face.
That would be really good.
That would be good.
At any rate, he's gone, and Trace gets in trouble for kind of defending Hobart as they're dragging him off to prison, I guess. And as punishment, or I guess to prove he should be in the Zone Troopers, the Commandant makes him battle an electronic warrior in a negative color space as punishment.
Yeah, it was weird. It almost felt like this should have been the main goal of the episode, or the thing we were working towards was this big fight, but they sort of threw it in for a couple minutes because it was we need a little bit of action, and it kind of works. I thought the guy was kind of interesting looking and the fight was kind of cool, but it just felt like a bit of a throwaway. Yeah, it was very odd. It was, I guess, a punishment for him, but there's no real threat. I mean, the worst it gets is when he's fighting this electronic warrior, how do you fight a robot? And at some point you see the robot about to Bane style break Trace's back on his knee, and Trace just reaches behind the robot's back and pulls out his power cable. Yeah, he just unplugs him, and they're like, never saw that coming. And they're like, well, I guess you won. Congratulations. He has a weakness those guys have, those Ultra Soldiers have that little soft spot in the back of their neck in Earth 2. That's right. Anyway, we jump forward a little, and there's 1 week left in training, and Trace is asking the Supreme Commandant for a commission recommendation so he can graduate at the top of his class. And the Commandant, he's still a little iffy on Trace here. He thinks he still maybe has that rebellion in his heart. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, Trace, let me show you something. Let me show you my table of hands of my enemies. And they're preserved very, very well. Yeah, it is a clear glass table full of human hands that I guess are cut off of people that the Commandant has taken on. Is it because he's missing a hand, the way to also punish people is to take their hands? Oh, you know what? You're right. Is it that in this world, when you defeat an enemy, you take their hand, but that they don't have to die? You just take their hand? I thought what it was going to be is he starts pulling these hands out and he can use them on his robotic
that'd be
hand.
cool.
But that's not what it was. He's just like, here's a glass jar. Do you like hands?
Yeah, just a trophy. It's his trophies of like people he's, I guess, argued with and won the argument.
I mean, I guess we should just be glad he's not, he didn't lose his penis in the battle. Am I right?
Oh, you think this is just the Supreme Commandant's tick?
Yeah, I think it's just him.
Anyway, this whole scene is just be like, I don't trust you still. And he's like, I don't think you could kill a man. And Trace is like, I'd kill you if you wanted. I'd take your little gold hand.
That's right.
But graduation day arrives very quickly. Krull has been invited to speak as the guest of honor as this war hero. And everyone's worried whether he's going to recognize Trace. Not really. He's like, you look familiar, but I don't know why.
I thought that was a weird stake to set up in the last 5 minutes of the episode. We're like, oh yeah, we need Krull here, and he's got a great memory. He didn't even get a look at Trace before. I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Yeah, he saw them so briefly when they robbed that car. It did seem like the stakes hadn't quite been set enough for them to like fully be like in that much trouble. But
all they had to do was have a few scenes where checking in with Krull as we go, and he's already recognized them or something. It was just like a weird...
Or he's seen video footage or something, right? Or, just before graduation day, Trace puts on a fake mustache.
Yeah, he should just grown a mustache the whole time. He had 13 weeks. Everyone can grow a mustache in that time.
Anyway, Trace has been selected as one of the 3 graduates who will become a commissioned officer. And there's a big, scene where he gets all his accolades with the 3 other officers. And then Krull announces, as part of graduation, they'll be given a special assignment. They just so happen to have found a rebel base a couple kilometers away from camp. And they're going to get in vampires, the 3 officer trainees, and go kill all those rebels.
It did seem weird as a post-graduation thing. I would almost understand if it was like, if you want to become an officer, there's one final test. But it's like, they already become the officers.
The way Krull phrased it is that it was just like, this isn't typical. We just happened to find this. And I was like, what a special treat.
Right. We just happen to have this cake here.
So, Trace has to get one of these vampires and fly off. And like, there has to be a scene where Hal runs over to him before he gets in his plane. And he's just like, I love you, son. And I know you'll always do the right thing. But there's no point in this episode where I was just like, oh, Trace has finally been indoctrinated.
Yeah.
He believes, like, there's never any moment where you're like, oh, well, is Trace going to kill these people? No, you don't. Like, they're going to fly off. Trace is going to make excuses for why he can't shoot them. It's going to become clear Trace is disobeying orders. And when he gets back, he's in trouble.
It would have been interesting if they had sort of had that indoctrination through the episode, that you see him changing. And maybe at the end, he is a different person. The situations they've put him through have changed him. But I mean, it's a lot to ask for a family adventure show.
For sure. It was just weird to me that they threw that scene at the end to imply that might have been what we were supposed to get out of it. I was just like, I would have loved if you'd done that, but I didn't see it. But yeah, he flies off, doesn't do what he's supposed to, disobeys orders, comes back. The commandant meets him as he lands his plane and pulls out his like laser pistol, and like, you're like, well, Trace is in trouble now. I guess he's going to be executed for disobeying orders. And the commandant is just like, you didn't listen to what we said. You're not fit to be a zone trooper. I'm throwing you out of the zone troopers. Please leave. It
was a real, we need an ending, so this is what it is. It was like, so everything didn't matter up to this point?
Here's the thing is, I think they just didn't do a good job with it, but I think what we were supposed to see is the commandant was supposed to develop a soft spot for Trace being a good soldier, about having that rebellion in his heart, and he was finally going to like have a change of heart and let him go as a result of that. But they never did any of the work to get him there.
Yeah, so it just seemed like, at least to me, that none of this mattered, because they said there's only one way out, and he has to become this soldier, and the only way to become that soldier is to do something that's morally repugnant to him. But he doesn't have to do that. You don't even see him really struggling to become the soldier, and then they just let him off at the end, even though they said there was no way that could happen.
And they said that if you don't do it, you go to a prison province. It was just very weird. It's like, just get out of here.
I mean, but what they do is the commander lets him go. Krull runs and's like, what happened? And he's like, I let him go. And they're like, well, I oughta. And then the family says, now that this has happened, we should start running again, like we maybe should have done 4 months ago.
Yeah, they essentially steal one of the zone trooper vans and just drive off into the sunset.
Yeah, it's like a minivan. They now have a minivan.
And Krull's just like, they did it again.
Yeah. Yeah. But another question. The family spent the whole time like Googling ways to do things. If it was as easy as just taking a minivan and getting him in, they could have done that at any point. There wasn't any less security at this time than there was earlier.
I mean, I guess the idea is they don't want to draw more attention to themselves, so they're trying to find a legitimate way to get him out of the zone troopers as opposed to just like stealing him and running. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Gotta have an episode, Jordan.
Gotta have an episode. Anyways, and we did have an episode.
I mean, that wraps it up for these 2 episodes. I mean, I will say that as a final note, I liked the theme song to this. Like, there's a lot of the production design elements are pretty good. Like, yes, everything looks like what exists in the 80s on the regular world, but they picked a lot of like modernist architecture buildings, like the triangle building that is the ZIT training center, and then
It is funny.
even the orientation hall they go into the first episode, like they all like look like cool authoritarian buildings. Like, I think they've done a good job with the aesthetic of the show. Like, it has an aesthetic for sure.
I agree. And I think they haven't had to have those really painful kid moments, like a lot of shows we've seen have done. I mean, look, there's still more episodes to come, but for a family show, they've stayed away from, I think, the slightly cheesier family stuff.
Yeah, it is certainly not as saccharine as you'd expect it to be.
Yeah.
Although I will say, and I mean, I'll see how you feel, both the episodes felt like they ran a little too long, like they weren't as tight as they could have been.
I agree. They're almost, it's weird to say, but they're almost 5 minutes too long. Once you get to about the 39-minute point, you're like, all right, we're going to wrap this up. And then they have, 5-6 more minutes.
It's true. I kept feeling like around the 20 to 30 minute mark, I'm like, well, this is almost done. Like, we know everything needs to happen. And you realize, like, oh, there's still like 15 minutes of the show left.
Yeah.
Anyway, shall we rate these guys?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What do you want to give to the pilot rules of attraction?
I have a feeling, and we'll see. I've been wrong about everything in my life this week, so I think I'll be wrong on this too. But I liked the pilot. I thought it was stronger than I was expecting, and maybe I was just in a good state of mind when I watched it, but I'm going to give it a 7.5.
7.5. I'm doing the exact same thing, 7.5. I don't think it's a perfect show by any means, but it is an insane, wild. I was just like, what is happening? The show is insane. Lots of places where I think people could be like, pick it apart or not enjoy it. But for me, I was just like, well, this is unusual in a very strange and unexpected way.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think for the second episode?
Weirdly, 7.5 again. It like the weirdness just kept rolling into the next episode. Listen, is it insane? They like in the second episode, they gave up on running and set up a whole new family. Again, like repeated the exact same thing they did in the first pilot. Yes. Did it make me laugh? Yes. It was so funny that it happened again. I don't know. I think it could easily take a sharp turn one way or the other. Like, this could push over into greatness. Like, if it just leans into how strange it is, it could be great. If it turns too hard to family, it's over.
I would agree with you. The strength of this show is how odd it is, and I really hope they lean into it. This second episode, I was a little bit more disappointed. I think they didn't use Mark Leonard enough. I think they had a bunch of ideas they didn't execute as well as they did in the pilot, weirdly. And also, I don't like the new youngest son as much. I'm going to give it a 6.5.
Whole point, for that youngest son.
Well, not just for him. The other things I mentioned too.
I don't know. Crazy show, man. I had no idea what I was getting into, and I gotta say, I still don't really know what I'm getting into.
Well, there's shades of two other things we've watched, which was Search for the Gods, podcast 70, and The Stranger, podcast 89, and some other things we've seen. And this is a weird amalgamation of those and Galactica 1980 and some other TV movies we've seen. It's a weird show, and I can see why this maybe didn't jive with audiences at the time.
It does feel like there's a creator at work on it, though. Whether they're like
agreed
a great creator, I don't know, but like they're certainly taking huge swings. There's some weird internal consistencies. They're like amazing. Like, it feels remarkably whole for a show that like could feel very like broken, like very just like weird tangenty.
I'm excited to see where it's going to go. It's better than I thought it was going to be, and I'm hoping that we just really push into the weird.
Yeah, me too. Well, Jordan, I think that about wraps it up. So if you, listener, remember Otherworld, you can write us at continuumdrag@gmail.com with some, I don't know, trivia and facts. Who knows? Whatever you want. Mm-hmm. And, of course, on Instagram and Twitter, at continuumdrags, that handle. We're going to have some cool clips. There's some cool clips in this show.
Mm-hmm. There's lots of stuff. There's 3 seconds of an electricity robot fighting a kid, and there's the sassy computers, and there's people falling into primordial soup waters.
It's got it all.
It's got it all.
All right, Jordan. Listener, thank you for joining us this week. And Jordan, I'll see you next week.
See you then. Continuum Drag is recorded in Toronto, Ontario. Theme music by James Rex Seidler. Produced by Jordan Dullock and Luke Black. Special thanks to Aaron Hughes.